Hey everybody. I think I'm gonna pick up best I can and continue reading chapter 24. We might be able to read it completely, might finish it all today or in this next few moments, might not. We'll see how it goes. There is only today, only one moment at a time. It was as if something between them had now suddenly snapped, leaving Bruce reeling. Don't. But he felt something kiss her back, felt her leaning into him. What was she trying to do? What did this mean? Nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It just means she wants dick. Never stick your dick in crazy though. Or allow crazy to stick its dick into you. Because it works both ways. By the way, I hadn't said it in a while, but I don't mean this for kids or to be monetized. If that happened, it happened. If kids are watching this, I apologize. But I'm not going to not be me. I mean, this happened to be the book I had on hand, or one of the ones I had on hand. Hoping it was going to be better. But anyways, but I'm not. Also to manipulate you. But he closed his eyes and kissed her harder, unwilling and unable to break his bond. She made a soft, yearning sound in her throat. Maybe he was dreaming again, and he would be shaken awake in a cold sweat. But her lips were warm and soft. The brush of her lashes against his cheeks felt like feathers. Heat rushed through him. His heartbeat roared in his ears. Don't do this. But he couldn't help himself. He wanted more of this, of her. Finally, she broke away. Her breaths were shallow, and she blinked at him, her expression momentarily vulnerable. I don't understand. You're an idiot. Bruce found himself whispering. He leaned instinctively forward, aching to kiss her again. What are you doing? For once, Madeline looked as bewildered as he felt. She leaned away from him, frowned, tried to compose herself. The calm demeanor she usually wore flickered. I chose to go to Arkham, she finally replied, but I didn't anticipate meeting you there. Why would you choose to go to Arkham? At that, her expression hardened again. Some of her momentary heat between them cooled. You aren't going to stop me, nor any of the other Nightwalkers. There is plenty that still matters more to me than you. And what about those murders? You can easily justify those, but they're still wrong. Harming people who've not harmed you, other than the fact that they control society, they do. You can't believe that a politician taking money for a campaign. By the way, we need to change that so that campaigns are financed by the people. Isn't swayed. You cannot truthfully say that lobbying isn't legal bribery, because it is. It just like walks like a duck, talks like a duck. Probably it's a duck, unless it's a furry in a cheaply made in a costume, cheaply made or expensive. By the way, that's your deal. That's your deal. But don't cheap out. Don't get a good costume, and not one that looks like a cartoon duck. One that looks like a real duck. That's my biggest issue with furries is the costumes are reminiscent cartoons, not of animals or animal spirits. And I know they're not pedophiles or anything like that. It just connects it to childhood, and that makes it weird. Okay, so, but anyways, it's hard. I would say I believe in the fact that, or I have an idea that there is no such thing as impossible, only improbable, the likely and unlikely. And it is almost impossible to have billions of dollars and not have some level of blood on your hands. But murdering people, harming people, is never good. Like, it brings no good to the world. Fighting for change, striving for change, striving for a better world, because a better world can exist. Those are the ideals, I think. Though this author is trying to make them sound like bad ideals, even, and has a misguided idea of what people who think like me, because I would be on their side, actually think the way we think and whatnot. But I don't think in an evil, horrible way. Keeping in mind she's writing a book for a corporately owned character who is himself a billionaire and also has to be the good guy. That's another thing. There are no heroes. I don't mean there aren't superheroes. There are no heroes. That doesn't mean that there aren't good guys. What I mean is, most everybody that you would call a hero is just someone trying to do their job. And they may even do it exceptionally well. Like, your favorite athlete might be, a decent person, gives money to charity, helps out the community, whatnot, and is really good at their sport, particularly their position. But they're not a hero. They are just a person trying to do their job and trying to do it well. And probably they do a job that they love, or they have a good reason to be there. There are no heroes. The guys who we can admire, there are bravery is a thing. Rising above and beyond is a thing. The guys who invaded Sicily to fight the fascists, the guys who stormed Normandy, we can admire what they did. But they were just guys doing a job. Nothing more. There are no heroes. The worship of heroes and the mythologizing of people. Sometimes there are good aspects in that it makes you look at someone who did something and want to be able to do it too, particularly if they did something good and something that we can easily argue helped humanity. Okay? That is worthy of being looked at, right, and examined. But the one area where mythology goes wrong is in the historic inaccuracy. In the real world, you're not going to find mythology goes wrong in that when it obscures the truth. One of my favorite myths is the great man theory, the self-made man. You'll find if you really look, you'll find it's never true. It's never true. One of these days, do a different type of show or a different deal, and there's no such thing as this isn't the place for this. That's a lie. That's one of the things that they do. One of the things that they say to prevent us from talking. Particularly to talk about certain ideas and ideals. When they say you should never discuss religion, sex, or politics, it's bullshit. It's BS. That's exactly what we should be doing. They say that not because of the damage it'll do to your working relationships. They don't want us talking about that stuff, so that we can't find common ground and realize who the real should be fighting with are. Because if we're at each other's throats, if we're fighting each other, we'll never fight the real. Alright, man. I'm gonna continue on. What about those murders? Bruce pressed. He leaned closer to her when she refused to look at him. Did you really commit them? For the first time, she hesitated at this question. You were protecting someone, weren't you? Bruce asked again. You took someone else's fall, admitted to the crimes. You went to Arkham in someone else's place. That's why you said you chose to go to Arkham, right? And what makes you say that? Madeline's voice had turned very quiet, reinforcing his suspicions. And what makes you say that? Because you're far too smart to be caught by the police with blood all over you. The sound of approaching footsteps outside silenced them both. Madeline straightened, a warming light glinting in her eyes, and she quickly distanced herself from Bruce as the door opened. Two of the night walkers who had previously been inside now returned, and with them a third person. Bruce's attention fixed immediately on the newcomer. He recognized this man. It was the same tall, looming silhouette he had seen in his house, pointing a gun straight at him. It was the same man who had been wearing a mask and goggles, whose outfit had gleamed a strange metal in the dim light. Bruce recognized the way he walked, easy and dangerous, like a tiger. But this time the man's mask was off, and his face was exposed. Bruce's breath caught in his throat. The resemblance was uncanny. Same slender, dark eyes, same pale white skin, same black hair. Although his was short and wild, a thick mess that he now ran a hand through, and unlike Madeline's more reserved, calculating expression, this man's face was full of fire. Bruce didn't even need to know him to know his temper ran on a short fuse. But what really caught Bruce's attention was the gleam of metal against his exposed skin. Bands of what looked like steel lined the sides of both his forearms, running up his elbows. His elbow joints were completely metal. That predatory gait he had was possibly due to the enhanced joints in his knees, giving him far greater control than an average human. Madeline gave him a wry look, but in it Bruce saw affection. That could only mean one thing. Took your time today, boss, she said, adding a taunting tilt to the final word. This man, the Nightwalker's infamous leader, was Cameron Wallace, her brother. Dun dun dun! Bruce could only stare for a moment as Cameron gave his sister a single humorless smirk. Too much fun to be had out there, he replied, nodding towards the door and the concert hall balcony beyond, and then at the captive guards who were now kneeling on the ground before him, heads bowed. And in here, what's going on? Madeline asked. No thanks to these guys. We hear a few police have managed to make their way through an underground tunnel to be within the concert hall's perimeters. They have a few rogue drones with them. Cameron shoved one of the guards hard enough to send him toppling sideways. If I had wanted the police to trickle in, I would have given you all the order to let them do so. Now you've made my life harder. Don't do it, Cam. We've done enough. But even as she said it, Cameron pulled out a gun from his belt holster and pointed it at the first guard. The guard started shaking his head frantically. I did that, Bruce spoke up. Everyone turned to look at him. I turned the police onto the underground path he missed. I sent the rogue drones. They're mine, after all, not yours. Is that so? Then that must mean you're Bruce Wayne. What a pleasure. Remember me? We met at your home. Cam? Madeline snapped. Cam! The warning growing in her voice. Good work getting him here, sis, Cameron replied. He turned his attention back to the sobbing guard. Then he pulled the trigger. Bruce flinched, but didn't look away, his ears ringing. The man fell to the floor with a scream as the bullet ripped through his side. Blood sprayed onto the wall. Cameron shot the two other guards in rapid succession, one in his arm, the other in his hand. Cam, damn it! Madeline jumped to her feet and shoved her brother hard, making him stumble back a step. We don't have time for this. You're wasting perfectly good people. Your people. Do I need to remind you that we're in a scaffold? I'm loving it. We're in a standoff right now. Cheer up, sis. I'm not putting bullets through their heads because of you. Cameron Cameron scowled at her and swung the gun onto his shoulder. They're not perfectly good people. If they can't stop a police assault, now we have cops on the hall's property. He nodded for the others to drag the wounded, sobbing guards out of the room. One bullet for each mistake. So make sure you make fewer of them. And now you have 3 injured guards, Madeline snapped. What happens if we need to be on the move? Leave them to be caught by the police and interrogated? Drag them along? You're slowing us down, you idiot. I didn't say I'd never put bullets in your heads, Cameron replied, so drop it. Bruce looked numbly at the carpet. There were streaks of blood leading to the door, and on the other side he could still hear the wounded Nightwalker's cries. They rang in his head. So this was the boss, a man who everyone had suspected to be dead, to have died as a boy. Suddenly, the cryptic way Madeline talked about everything made sense. As Madeline fumed, Cameron grinned at her and gave her a nudge. Have you been enjoying your little date night in here? He swiveled to Bruce and gave him a once-over. You had some remarkable reflexes, Wayne. It's too bad you're not one of us. You're quite enraptured by my baby sister. Madeline shot him an annoyed look. Bruce looked at her brother and then back at her. You told me he was dead. I read the obituary online. It's not hard to fake a death, Bruce. After Cameron almost died, Mom left the country with his body and got a foreign doctor to perform an experimental procedure that saved his life. Hence the artificial joints you see. Different ever since. She looked at her brother again with a bitter roll of her eyes. Bruce watched them carefully. Had Cameron's procedure not only strengthened his body, but also warped his conscience? Being off the grid is helpful for a lot of things, Cameron, isn't it? You tend not to be a primary suspect when you murder people. There was a sharpness in her voice. You were the real killer? You slit the throats of those people, and you made Madeline take the fall for you? I don't make her do anything, Cameron replied. I chose to take it. I was responsible for hacking the home systems at each victim's house. That's my job. Cameron executed. There in her voice was a strange sarcasm again. And this time, Bruce understood that it meant Madeline had neither planned nor approved of the way Cameron murdered their victims. I saw what our mother went through in the prison system. I wasn't about to see another family member endure it, especially not Cameron, who our mother gave up her life to protect. Cameron smiled at his sister. It's good to have you back. Now we can actually move forward. Move forward. Do you know why I killed each of those money bags, Wayne? There was a savage light in his gaze. It's because they were corrupt to the core. Madeline made an unhappy face, but he shook his head. Had you not been Bruce Wayne, you would have been a much harsher prison sentence for interfering with the police. I'd bet my life on it. So forgive me when I say that I relish stealing the millions in their bank accounts, cutting their throats, and then using the same money to destroy the corruption they all stand for. It's invigorating, wouldn't you agree? They weren't supposed to die, Madeline interjected. She frowned again at her brother. Let the loss of their wealth be their pain, and have them avoid the justice they deserve. Each of those so-called philanthropists earned money from Gotham City's privatized jails. Tell me then whether or not they deserve to die. They didn't deserve to die like that. No one does, not even you. I'm already dead. Got my certification to prove it. And I was next. Anger cut through Bruce's voice. That was my plan, although someone seems to have alerted you to it. At that, Cameron shot Madeline a scathing look. Bruce looked at her too. Perhaps she had been watching out for him after all. Bruce turned to Madeline. You honestly think that the cycle of theft, murder, and destruction is worth it? Madeline lifted her chin. I believe this is a wake-up call to Gotham City. Yes, I have no patience for the ruling class that protects the greedy. What about me? Do you believe I deserve the same fate as the other people you allowed to die? You aren't supposed to be here, said in a tight voice. Cameron looked at her and sighed. liking to this one, didn't you? When she didn't reply, shook his he shook his head and started heading towards the door. Doesn't matter anyway. Wayne, it's time we finished our business with you. Show Madeline how to access the rest of your accounts, and we'll do our transaction quickly and quietly. Good, keep them going. Why would I? Because you'll put a knife to my throat if I don't, like all the others. Cameron lifted an eyebrow at him. He was talking to at him like he was talking to a child. Because, Bruce Wayne, if you don't, there are a lot of those hostages out there on the balcony who will have to answer to your stubbornness. Bruce glanced at Madeline. She only gave him a grave stare. Don't make me do this, she murmured, shaking her head slightly. Cameron didn't hear her. Instead, he just opened the door and stepped out. Don't take too long, sis. Oh, God. Melodramatic bullshit. Bruce glanced at Madeline. She only gave him a grave stare. Don't make me do this, she murmured. Shaking her head slightly. Cameron didn't hear her. Instead, he opened the door and stepped out. Don't take too long, sis. He called over his shoulder. He left, leaving them alone for a moment. Madeline, Bruce said in silence, this isn't really you. I can see it on your face. Excuse me. She didn't answer, determinedly looking towards the door, but her body leaned instinctively in its direction. Pardon me. And he felt the warmth of her nearness. It doesn't matter, she replied quietly, even as uncertainty trained each word. Our goals remain the same. And what will happen to me after your brother's done with me? Do you think he will let me walk out of here alive? Do you think he'll hand me over to the police? He glanced towards the door. Do you think he'll let his hostages go? Madeline didn't reply right away, and in her moment of hesitation, Bruce saw the truth. You do care, he whispered. He leaned closer, desperate to see that something in the connection, whatever it was that they had, was real. I never wanted you here, Bruce, Madeline whispered, her eyes hard. Why? She glanced to her side, and it looked like she was about to say something, but then thought better of it. Why, Madeline? Because I'll tell you the truth. Right now, I really thought I liked you. And in spite of everything, I still feel something for you. Don't take this path. Madeline looked bleakly at him. This story can't end happily for us. And she finally replied, tearing her eyes away and standing up. So let's just finish this. All right. I'll see y'all in a little bit. I'll try not to rant so much.